The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
All right, welcome to episode 179 of Sports Card Nation. Hope this podcast finds you well. Little personal update in my hunt for the 48 leaf Jackie Robinson. Did get to bid in a couple auctions on Golden. Just missed out on a couple 48 leaf Jackies on that site, but I'm on to another big time auction site, and so the search continues there. Again, no real timetable. Got the Dallas show coming up, where if I don't have it by then, that'll be on my list, hopefully, to maybe get one in person. And truthfully, I'd rather get it in person than auction, but beggars can't be choosers. Got a great guest today on the show, Ty Wilson from Breaker Culture, Bench Clear Media. And he's got a new show called Chasing Cardboard. It's got a American Pickers type feel. I've seen episode 1 and very well done. And think it's some great content. Maybe some content you might be seeing, on your big screen, or your TV, I should say. And has that kind of feel to him. We're going to talk about that show, Bench Clear, what Ty does. Great conversation. This guy's one of the busiest guys in the hobby, no doubt. And I always love having those guys on, number one, for them to make time when they're out of their busy schedule to come on. I'm appreciative of that. But I always like to sort of pick their brain, see what makes them tick, and how do they get, that work-life balance, what's their secret. And always fun to hear when those folks kind of explain how they do it. So great conversation, and I think you enjoy it, and we'll learn a little bit more about chasing cardboard. So with that being said, let's get the party started.
What's up, everyone? It's Brody the Kid. Always remember, the hobby is the people. Peace out.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector, the Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the Moco Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. The show starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready? It's showtime.
All right, joining me now on the Sports Card Shop at Moco guest line, a man of many talents, probably one of the busiest men in the hobby, I'll say. He's going to be traveling the world. We'll talk about, or I should say the country. We're going to talk about that during the interview. But from Breaker Culture, Bench Clear Media, and the new show, Chasing Cardboard, Mr. Ty Wilson.
What's up?
How's it going?
It's going, man. Your intro is hot.
Yeah, that I always tell it is, and then it's all downhill from there, Ty. So, but how do you? I get maybe the first question should be like, where do you get your energy, man? You're a busy guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I drink lots of coffee. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, well, I do too, but I think it's working better for you than me. So, let's start out. I mean, we don't have to do like an original. I mean, you've been doing this a few years. You're not new. You did the Breaker Culture podcast, and then
Yeah.
you formed, Bench Clear Media, which was a culmination of different shows, including multiple that you did yourself. When did you kind of brainstorm that? How did that all come about?
So it's been 2 years now. So Breaker Culture
Yeah.
started as let me go interview breakers and let me go interview people in the hobby, because at the time, I mean, gosh, 6 years ago, there just wasn't a lot of podcasts. I think you and I started really close to each other back in the day. And then it evolved into, hey, let's see if we can make this like a network in the sense that there's lots of content coming out. And so I got talking with Jeff Packgeek, who is now VP of marketing over at Panini. He left for better things, if you will. And then it kind of different folks kind of joined, and it evolved into what it is now with Mike Moynihan and Tyson Banker and Matt Coleman doing all the great production work. And there's been guys that have come in and out, and we're still pushing out content and loving it. So
people don't realize like you're doing all I do just really in a sense 2 shows, like this show on Fridays and then just me on Mondays called Hobby Quick. It's just my big mouth and a little bit shorter for everyone's sake. And, people, and again, I'm not trying to, pat ourselves on the back, maybe a little bit. There's a lot of work that goes into it. People, it's a labor of love. I think I can speak for you there, but there's a lot of work, especially to be consistent. When you're telling people, hey, every Monday, every Friday, whatever day you're on, and there's a lot of responsibility there, but it's fun, and you got a great team, and it makes what you do seem seamless. It's not probably as seamless as it seems, but it comes out that way. And like you said, that's a testament to the folks that you have on your team. And
sure.
we talked. You make a great point. When we kind of I started in November of 2018 with Sports Card Nation, and like you said, there was just a few shows. I mean, you could count them on less than probably 2 hands, literally. And here we are in mid 2022 almost, and no shortage anymore. I've even heard some other content creators say we actually have too much. It's oversaturated. I guess, asking, again, we're going to pat ourselves on the back here, kind of being sort of early into this genre niche, if you will. I mean, what do you say to maybe other content creators that say there's too much? Do you agree? I'll answer my own question first. I kind of think, I guess that's up to the consumers to, I guess, decide, whether with downloads and views, and that to me, that sort of sorts that out. But, I mean, we all watch or listen to what we want. And, I don't like being that guy that says, you can't do it, but I can, or your stuff stinks and mine doesn't. I've never, wasn't really raised like that. And so I don't really take that stance. I just say, if it's good content, people are gonna make that determination, not me or you. I mean, we do individually if we download or watch something, but as a mass consumer, they're gonna have the final say.
No, I agree. If someone came up to me and said that there's too much, which there's many people have, I agree. I think there's too much, right? There's too much of the same type of stuff out there.
Yeah.
When we come up with schedules and agendas, it's like the hardest part is not getting on air. It's how do we talk about something we haven't already talked about? Because the hobby, it just gets repetitive, right? So you have to be creative in the way you present it. And I get tired of seeing the same topics, the same, thumbnails. It just gets old. You get just fatigued.
Yeah. The one content, again, I won't, the one content that doesn't do much for me, because I do shows. I'm a dealer. I go to shows as a consumer. Some of it just kind of filming, like walking around a show or seeing deals. I've kind of done that for like 30 years. Now I get it. Some of these deals are like, are big dollar deals, 5 or 6 figure deals. I get it. You don't see those all the time, if pretty rarely. So I get the excitement in that, but just the normal kind of day-to-day show business. When I say show business, I'm talking card show stuff. That doesn't really move my meter because I've did my first show as a 15-year-old kid, and that to give away my age, which I'm not shy about anyway. That's 34 years ago, and I've other than a few years of kind of hibernation, I've really done shows literally at least one, if not multiple, every year. So it's sort of I've seen it. I've seen it. I don't want to say I've seen it all, but I've seen so much of that seeing it in a vlog. It just doesn't move my meter. Now, that's not to say those folks that are producing that content, they're working hard. They're putting in the grind. I'm not critiquing that. I'm just saying the actual, what it is itself doesn't. It's not something I normally would watch. I'm more of an audio guy while I'm driving, that sort of thing. Anyway,
it's funny. We joke sometimes, Mike and I, about just how easy it would be to get clicks just going to shows. Go to the Dallas Card Show. He's there, right? Anytime we want, and you guarantee yourself thousands of views. But the hard part, and the thing I think we get most excited about, is how do you create content that engages people and makes them think a little bit differently about the hobby? And to your point, like watching someone trade a card and a deal, like, okay, like I guess you check a box and you get the views, but anybody could do that, right? Anybody could do that.
Yeah. It's funny that when I went to the National in Chicago 2018, I joke with on my own show about this. I felt like I'm not an actor, but I almost felt like an actor. I was on a movie set and I was like crashing scenes. There were just tripods all over the place, and I'm just walking around. I'm not. It's like every corner you turn, you're in a potential shot, and I'm old school, so it was sort of and again, I'm not, I knew video content creation was happening. I was naive, but just to that level really surprised me. It was like every other table somebody was filming, whether it be with a professional kit on a tripod and audio boom and or just with a camera on a selfie stick, whatever, every level was covered. And it almost felt like I had to tiptoe through rows and tables and stuff because I was like in shots, And my thing was, hey, you want an ugly guy on film? Go ahead and capture me on camera. It's not gonna help you what you're doing, but I've even heard a couple shows, Ty, like kind of put that sort of like, hey, we're not allowing cameras, sort of, for the customer experience. We, no offense, guys and ladies, we want to just have a card show and, cell phones fine, but we don't want like, tripods and, camera crews and that sort of. I mean, it's not common, but I have seen a few shows kind of, put that limit on there, and I get it. I'm for free speech and producing content, but I get where it comes from. When I go to a show as a consumer, I'm usually there just like you and talk to people I know, meet people for the first time, buy some cards, and not feel like I'm walking in on a scene every 10, 15 minutes. But, it's again, people like that stuff, going to watch it. It's going to happen. And it's not, I guess, it's not my place to say, you can't do it. I mean, that'll be up to, in the cases, like I mentioned, a show promoter might decide to ultimately put that sort of restriction. And I'm sure those content creators aren't real fans when that happens, but it's their show, as they say, right? So,
sure.
I think that just kind of comes with the territory of the explosion, of the content.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to step aside for a real quick break, but we'll be right back with more with Tyler Wilson. Sports Card Nation is back with more with Ty Wilson. I'm a dad. You're a dad. I got one 22-year-old kid. You've got 6 kids. God bless you. Younger than 22, I'll say that. And you, like I said, you're one of the busiest guys in the hobby. On top of being a dad and husband. I mean, how do you balance that out? I mean, that whenever I have someone on the show, Ty, that is a mom or dad that does this kind of stuff. I'm always enamored by that. How do they do it? What's their, approach? And it's almost everyone has. It's like a fingerprint. It's kind of unique to whoever the person is. It's not, kind of like a snowflake where where everything's the same. But what's how do you do it? I guess is the simplified way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the years is for it to work. And yeah, I probably put more time into the hobby from the content side than a lot of people do, but you just have to be open and honest with your spouse and your kids, right? Like it's a balance between you doing a lot, but also just, hey, I'm going to communicate this with you. And if there's a problem, if it's too much, like, just communicate back and we'll figure out a good balance. The worst thing I see in some people is trying to force things without communicating with your spouse or your kids, or even hiding stuff, especially when it comes to purchasing things, right? You're hiding things and it becomes just that weird dynamic. Communication is absolutely key, and it's working for me for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this on at least one of my shows, if not more than one. One of the things, I didn't get in trouble. I've been married 23 years, so it's at this point we're locked in. But one of the things my wife could care less about the hobby of cards. It's not her thing. She knows very little about it. She knows that some of the stuff I have's worth some money. She's probably waiting for me to keel off and then tell my son to. But all joking aside, the one, I don't want to say got in trouble, but a lot of times I would schedule interviews or different things, and I would tell her like the day of, hey, later today at like 8:00, I got this. And it bothered her that she was finding. It didn't bother her I was doing it. It bothered her that she was finding out literally like the day of or on short notice. So what we do now, and it's worked wonders. We have a dry erase like monthly calendar. It's in the kitchen, and whenever I schedule something, and not just content creation, whatever. If I'm playing softball or whatever, an appointment, it goes on the whiteboard as far ahead as I can put it. And it just like you said, communication is key. And she knows, whether it be 2-3 days, 2 weeks ahead, and we can kind of schedule around that. And we've kind of, our rule, and it works both ways, is as long as we don't have any plans already together, we can kind of make some plans, so long as it doesn't screw our plans up. And so that whiteboard was sort of a game changer. And again, it didn't get testy, but it really kind of opened those lines of communication up to avoid maybe that pratfall before we kind of really get into it. And since we've started doing it, she puts her stuff. My son will write his stuff. He's still at home right now. And that way we all know, hey, what's going on tomorrow, what's going on the next day, next week, and so on. That's how we do it here. And again, I have, one adult son at 22. So, when I 6 kids, got, I think there should be an award for that. If there isn't one,
trust me, I reap the awards every day. I get to experience it. It's plenty good enough for me. I love it. I will say it does help because on the breaker culture side, right, most of what we do on the breaker culture side is sell cards, right? I have a pretty good size eBay business. My wife handles all the shipping for that. So she's shipping 50 to 100 things a day. And so she's locked in with that. So she might despise cards, but at the very least, she's interacting with shipping labels.
If I let my wife do that, Ty, the people would not be getting their stuff most likely. It would be sort of, not a good scenario. But I love my Rolo printer. I will say that shameless plug for them. They're not a sponsor, but I'm being honest. That thing's been a difference maker for me. I got it about a year ago, or maybe a little less than that. That just saves me a lot of shipping time. So
game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, I know you spoke about it on your content. I've heard some of it, but for this show, Fanatics getting most of the licensing here. playing pretty cutthroat. It's business, right? People don't like that to talk about the hobby in a business sense, but let's be real. We're talking about $1 billion industry, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. What do you think? What are your thoughts? You've got your finger on the pulse here. What are your thoughts of Fanatics? Are you cautiously optimistic, concerned, ecstatic, whatever? What do you think?
I would say for the most part, I'm pessimistic about it. I would
Yeah.
say there's a lot of things that I think really concern me with the way that they'll probably handle it. I think a couple things, like one, I think they're underestimating how important distributors and breakers are, right? I've seen multiple tweets about breakers getting their allocations cut off. They're not able to get lots of product. And it sounds really great on paper, like, hey, let's have one source and let's get it out to the front lines, let consumers digest it. I think they're just underestimating how important the hobby, like, veterans are on the group breaking side. And you take that away, I think a lot of momentum is sucked away almost immediately. And second, I just think from an economic standpoint, it's just really bad timing, right? It's just bad timing heading into this year.
Yeah, I mean, inflation is at an all-time high. I don't want to make this a
economics podcast
press on Sunday or a political show, but it is the truth. I mean, that's what it is. You can look at numbers, and it's not a debate. It's an all-time record, and not a good spot to be in. The thing that makes me worried, Ty, too, with Fanatics is, they pay. They got this licensing, but it's costing them a pretty penny, and we've heard, it's not official, but we've heard unofficially these are 20-year deals. Well, 20-year, you don't have to be an economics major to know a 20-year deal is going to cost you a big coin to procure. And they're a bit, they're in it to make money. They're not, I'm sure there's an element of care, that they care what the hobbyist wants and wants to deliver a great product. But at the end of the day, when the buck stops, that's where it stops. Is they need to make money. They need to profit. And when they're already that sort of, deep in it, if you will, or have that sort of, investment in it, that's what worries me, is that we're going to see overproduction. Some people say we're, already there. I don't know about that, but, everyone's afraid of the, junk wax era 2.0, as it's been, people like to throw around. Again, I'm not saying we're going there, but that's my fear, is that they're just going to produce this stuff so they can make that investment back, and in the long run, it's going to hurt the image sort of the hobby. And if you're a history guy like I am, history tends to repeat itself. We've seen something that happened in World War II that's kind of going on again similarly now. And hobby wise, hobby is real life too. And that's my fear. So I would say I'm cautiously optimistic, but I probably lean more, like you said, a little more guarded and like, where are we going here? And
All
right, going to step aside to hear from one of our great sponsors. But after that, we'll be back with Chasing Cardboard's Ty Wilson.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group, or on the web at ironsportscards.com, or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
We are back with more with Ty. We just had recently 2 incredible boom years. We all know it. We just lived through it. And, all good things have to, at some point, come to an end. I think we've seen, I've stole it from you. I give you credit anytime I use it, but a great term, hobby reset. You coined that, I'm assuming. And I heard you say it, and I said, I love that. Everyone wants to call it a crash, a correction. And I think that's more apropos, hobby reset. Things have sort of like kind of cooled off, calmed down, new game. And, some people are not going to like that because some of those prices in turn have come back to probably where they really should be at the end of the day. And for those that come into the hobby that are just seeing, an S with two lines through it, they're not going to necessarily like that. Whether they stick around, that's going to be on them. But again, I stole that. It's Shore's hobby reset, but I think that's where we're at. And when you think about that's where we're at, and everything else with Fanatics and the money that they're just kind of throwing around, I'm not a businessman on that level, but I just it's hard to fathom how that works without some collateral damage and whatever that collateral damage might be. And I can only speak, I'm in central New York here, and during the recent heyday, you couldn't find anything on the shelves, and obviously people were complaining I can't buy packs and boxes, and now whenever I go in the Walmart, and the shelves are actually have stuff on it, and then I say to myself, is that good or is it bad? Because it's full shelves are nice when you want to buy something, but one of those the byproducts of those empty shelves is a kind of a strong hobby. There's a demand, and I'm not saying there isn't a demand now, but what we've seen too, this is we've seen blaster boxes on the retail level go up in price. They're not $19.99 anymore. Those days are in the rearview mirror. We see 25, 27, 32, 35. We get into mega boxes, you're looking at 40, 60 bucks. And Topps Gallery that does collecting dust at least at one time at $75. And I joke there, but things are different. And so I don't, one day we're complaining we can't find the stuff, and then when we do, I'm throwing myself under the bus too. I'm not, pointing at anyone. And then we're saying, I don't know if this is a good thing that stuff's not really moving at the breakneck speed it once did. So, I don't know the answer. It's all like we're all speculating, for the moment. But I don't know. Like you, I'm a little. I probably tend to come to your side a little more pessimistic. I try to be optimistic, but that inner voice, in my head is like, I don't know about this.
Well, I think the reality is like as a collector, there's always stuff to collect, right? That never changes. Good hobbies, bad hobbies, there's always stuff to collect. As an investor, you just caught the top, right? The last year and a half, if you got in, you caught the top. Fanatics caught the top, and they're going to learn the hard way, right? Like the market's going to tell them when they're overprinting. When they're overprinting, people aren't going to buy it, and we're going to start seeing stuff on shelves, and they're going to print less of it. And it's going to take a while. It's just a big cycle, right? It's a big cycle. And unfortunately, like when you have overprinted product entering a recession, inflation like crazy, it's just not a good recipe for success. So
it was this is old news, but when the hobby boom, it was we had people working from home with 5 tabs on their computer, bonus packages from unemployment, bonus packages from places of employment for staying working and getting the job done. Unemployed, my wife actually was unemployed. She took a volunteer layoff to help someone else out that had young kids. She's a nurse, and so she was unemployed for 2 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, she made more in the 2 weeks she took the voluntary layoff than she did when she was working. And 3 nurses did it with her and 2 other nurses. Wow. And when they called them back, she's a worker, so she went right back, but the 2 other nurses who were making more at home were finding every excuse in the book not to come back right away. Hey, can I have another week? I got a bunch of stuff, I get it. You know what I mean? If you're that's human nature. If you tell someone, hey, I'll pay you more to be at home or less to come and drive in and commute, I'm not even picking on them. I get it. But, we were, some people were kind of spoiled and with what's going on. We had the stimulus packages and, now we're on the better side. I mean, the pandemic's obviously not over, but we're on the better side of the hill, if you will, and things are back to the new normal, if you will, there too. And sort of those salad days, like I call them, are sort of over now, and a lot of that discretionary income is not the same. And like you said, I think Fanatics' eyes got big during the boom days, and then it's like it's a different landscape now. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort of navigate that. Knowing that they're, I'm sure you agree, there are a lot of smart people in that room. They didn't
Oh, for
get to
sure.
where they are by accident. They have a lot of analysts and people that do that in their sleep and are very good at it. So it'll be interesting to see, how they navigate. You make a good point. I think there are going to probably be some missteps here and there, and they'll have to adjust to them because things happen so fast, and sometimes faster than a human can even react to it. So, I just tell, when people ask me, I just say, hang on to your seat. I don't know. It's, I have my opinion, but at the end of the day, we're all on the roller coaster together, and we don't know what curve's coming up or dip or climb. So,
well, I'll close my thoughts on that by saying I might be pessimistic about what's kind of happening, but that doesn't mean you have to be a pessimist as a person, right? Like you can still enjoy the hobby in so many ways. And even as a flipper, as an investor, right? There's plenty of opportunities for you to find little spots in this hobby to do your thing. And I'd rather us be, those types of voices than anything. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, I've been doing this long. I'm gonna be in the hobby, till I breathe my last breath, good, bad, and I've been there at bad times. I've been there, obviously, in recent times when everything was, a home run, no matter what it was. It didn't matter.
For sure.
It could be nanny cards, and they sold out, and so I've seen almost everything. I don't want to say I've seen everything, pretty close. And, I'm just enjoying the ride, and like you said, there's more than one way to enjoy the hobby. Time to take another quick break, but right after that, we'll return with more with Ty Wilson. Are you a new sports card collector or someone that's returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for almost 4 years with affordable breaks, helpful Twitter threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. First-timers can use the coupon code MBB10 and save 10% on their first order. Your first break mail will also include a bonus card so no one strikes out on their first break. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. We've even launched an NFT project dedicated to the hobby. Find us on Twitter at MidwestBoxBreak. Welcome back. Here's more with Ty Wilson. You can even pivot. Maybe if something doesn't do it for you, doesn't do it for you anymore, you can try a different angle before you kind of just pack your cards up, sell them, and leave the hobby. Unless that's truly what you want to do. I don't want to, do your stuff. But, I every once in a while, I'm sure you get them too. I get a message like, hey, I'm discouraged. I'm thinking about selling, and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I try to get maybe at a hobby. Maybe I get like an honorary hobby psychiatrist. I always ask the person like, what's going on? Why do you feel this way? What's got your angst up? And then, when I find out what it is, and I try to give them another way, maybe to still be in the hobby and just do it this way where you have more enjoyment and less angst.
Yeah.
I tell them like, listen, if you try that or you try something you figure out and you're still not feeling good, I don't want anyone to be unhappy either. That's not very nice. And, ultimately it's their decision. And I'm a welcoming guy. Like, one of the reasons the hobby thrives is we got to have people doing it. And so I'll never, tell people to jump and get out of here. But at the same time, if it's causing issues, in personal lives or angst or trouble financially, then everyone's got to look at that individually and decide what's best for them. So, I every once in a while I get someone that will kind of, what should I do? I'm not really enjoying the hobby no more, and I try to be as optimistic with them and give them some other ways to look at it. But at the end of the day, they have to decide for themselves. So let's pivot. I recently had Ray Schulte, public relations, does the national on, and we've all heard the rumors. You two, Ty, about maybe there'll be a time when there's two nationals a year rather than the one. I asked them about it. What are the will that be maybe something we see one day? He kind of he was sort of vague, but said, hey, they always look at things and maybe. I'm kind of old school. I like sort of the one national. I told him, if you ever went to, not that they listen to me, but I said my opinion is, if you ever went to two nationals, maybe have one being central, Chicago, Cleveland, and then alternate every year on the East Coast, West Coast, wherever that may be, California, on the West Coast, and then an East Coast city. That way, because I try to encompass everybody. I think, man, we have this one coming up here in Atlantic City. If I lived in California, and you're out more now to the West Coast, I try to think of how this affects everyone. I'm like, man, if I lived there, this trip would be a lot more expensive to make and harder to pull off. I'm in Central New York. I'm going to be driving to Atlanta City, so I don't want to say it's completely easy, but it's a lot easier for me, demographically than someone that's out in the West Coast. And I think about them too. So I don't really want two nationals, gun to head. But if we ever went to that format, I'd like to see kind of a central one every year and then alternate every other year, East Coast, West Coast. So I guess my question to you, what are your thoughts on two nationals? And if you went to two nationals, how would you want them to manage two nationals?
I don't have a conviction about it, honestly, too much. I mean, I like your idea. I think it's good to mix it up. Yeah, the West Coast kind of gets screwed every year because they don't get any options with the national. Yeah, you're right. I mean, West Coast to Atlantic City, like I'm probably not going. Like people from the team will go, but I don't know if I'm going to make it out there. It's just too hard of a trip to make it with kids, especially. And that's what the national, I think, is really the best part about it, is getting your kids and everybody else to those cool experiences. And plus it's in Atlantic City. It's not exactly a kid-friendly environment. So, I don't know. There's so many good regional shows now. Like you would agree. You go to a lot of shows. I see your feed. The national doesn't quite mean as much now to me when you got so much good stuff happening at a local level. If you went to two, I would care just as much as if you stayed with one.
Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback off what you said, Ty, a question that I'm just spitballing here, but it's something I've asked other, we are seeing a lot more shows. You got Culture Collision in Atlanta, Dallas Card Show's become a beast in itself. You got the East Coast National and White Plains. I know I'm going to forget someone, not on purpose, not intentionally, but you're seeing these rise of shows and even new ones in areas that didn't have necessarily shows before. I love shows, don't get me wrong, but some of the mystique about a show is, when you don't have them all the time. So you look forward to, I guess, a little bit of trepidation or concern. I don't want to say fear. I'm not scared about it. It's like if we start having too many shows, it's kind of like too much product produced, right? I just worry that maybe the bloom's going to come off the rose a little bit. I mean, the show is a show and you have fun when you go, but I just worry that there could be sort of an oversaturation of even card shows. We talk about content, but do you think so, or you think at this point the demand is just so great enough that you don't see that happen?
I think ultimately the market tells you, right? The market will tell us when there's too many shows because they'll stop going to shows. But I think there's a big overreaction that happened the last year with, oh my gosh, we've been stuck in our house for so long. Now let's get out and let's go to every card show possible. I think that's dying down a little bit, but the best part about card shows is they help reinforce the most important element of sports cards, and that is the community piece of it, right?
Yep.
You go to these shows now. We went to one in Missoula, Montana. We did a video on it. You had so many kids walking around there. They weren't there flipping or investing. They were there like building their collections as a kid. And that doesn't happen if you don't have a show. So there's a lot of that where, like, if we're going to have more shows and that's what we facilitate, let's go. Let's do more, because that's what we need in the hobby.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm a big kids, and I started as a 7-year-old kid in 1979. You can do the math, but I've already said I will. And, I was welcomed, and it just grew from there. Started working at a card store, did my first show on my own at 15, did my first store with a partner at 20. And, I was exposed early. So if we can, get kids early, especially at an age, Ty, where it's not all dollar signs. I understand when a kid opens a pack and pulls something good. It's just human nature. Hey, what's this worth, right? We all do it. Anyone that's, whenever someone tells me, I don't care what my cards are worth, I'm like, you're lying.
Yeah.
Like, I love you. I like you. You're lying. I don't think you're a bad guy or lady. You're not telling the truth, because I don't care who you are, right? I show something to my wife that maybe either I purchased or pulled. And she knows, what's that worth, right? It's just human nature to ask or want to know, what did I hit here? What did I get? And, so at now someone may not do it for the value like that,
right,
but they still kind of curious. To say they don't care, I think they're not being truthful. But, when you start at 6, 7, 8 years old, even younger potential, I think, I'm glad I started, in 1979 before it was a different hobby. Cards had some value, but we were just trading them, throwing them around. We didn't like a guy, we threw it against the wall and dinged it up. Stupid stuff like that. Now kids don't do that, or most kids, but, I'm glad I kind of entered at that point, and I've seen both sides of this, right? Where I didn't care really what my cards were worth. I just like teams and players. And, now as a dealer and a seller, there's that aspect too. But I'm glad I lived sort of through both aspects and not just one. I think a kid today in today's social media, where the world's a smaller place and information can be had in literally, milliseconds. I'm glad that, I didn't grow up in that era, so to speak. I wish I was younger, don't get me wrong, but I think it would have changed how I viewed the hobby a little bit. I think, and I'm not picking on the kids. We're products of our environment, and that's why I sort of am the way I am from starting in 1979 as a 7-year-old. So I'm not criticizing kids. I'm just saying that's the era we're in. And so when you see a younger kid that maybe is not doing it for those reasons yet, and they're getting in sort of pure, I always like to see that when I'm at my table, when I'm doing a show, and I always have some packs with me, and kids come up to the table, I always make sure to give them a free pack, and just sort of pay it forward and be sort of an ambassador, because I see those little kids were me, 40 something years ago, but and you don't know what that one pack could do. It could be a reason why they stay in the hobby or not. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost me much. And, they light up, and, a parent, a mom and dad say, you're giving them that? Yeah, that's his. Pull something big. And it goes a long way. And so kids in the hobby, I concur. And we're seeing a lot more. And that's obviously a positive and a good thing. Time to pay a couple bills, but we'll be right back with more with Tyler Wilson. Sports Card Nation has returned to talk with Tyler Wilson. Speaking of shows, let's get to your new one, Chasing Cardboard. I watched episode 1 yesterday as you went through the country of Texas, as I call it. It's not a state that's bigger than some countries, but talk. I could talk about but talk about kind of where the concept came. What made you come up with the show, and what it is. It had before it had like sort of an American Pickers. For those that watch American Pickers,
Yeah.
I don't want to say I watch every episode, but I watched enough episodes to know about it. It sort of, to me, had that sort of feel. We just didn't have Frank on unless Mike's cameo, we'll call him Frank. But all joking aside, it had an American Pickers type of feel. It was well done. I'm not just saying that. I'd say that whether you were on the air right now or not. It was well put together, and where kind of talk about the birth of the show, how it all came.
Yeah. You nailed it. I mean, it does have an American Pickers feel. We modeled a lot of the elements of the show around that. And I think people watch that for all the right reasons and very similar reasons to the sports card hobby, right? This aura of like digging up things and going to people's houses and finding stuff. And we thought, man, from a hobby perspective, that doesn't exist. But we just looked at it like, well, first off, Matt Coleman is the producer of the show, and the dude is about as talented as they come, right? I can't speak highly enough about Matt. He is just so talented, and he had this idea, and he kind of said, "Hey, Ty, what do you think about doing something like this?" And we thought on it for months, and then we realized how expensive it was going to be. So it was like, okay, do we want to go all in with these costs? And so we tried. We tried the pilot episode in Houston, which is what you saw in episode 1. That's all Texas, and it took basically a month of being in Texas to go in and all these collections and collaborate it all together. But the idea was, let's create a family-friendly, highly produced sports card oriented show, something that we would feel comfortable enough to take it to History Channel and say, hey, you want to like tap into the hobby? Here you go. This is what we want. This is what we did for you. And we actually have pitched it to some TV networks already. And we've gotten great feedback on it. And we decided to go ahead and roll with season 1 and maybe season 2 on our own. And thank you so much for the feedback. And that's kind of what we've been getting. Like, oh my gosh, we have this highly produced sports card show that's very similar to shows we're used to. Like, sign me up.
It's funny. Obviously, I watch it on YouTube, Ty, but if I didn't know I was watching it on YouTube, I would have felt like I was watching it on my TV on the History Channel, A&E, or whatever channel. It had that feel. I didn't feel like it was a YouTube, talking about walking around a card show. Hey, let's look at this. Had a completely like this had my attention. Like I didn't even know what, I don't know, was it 40, 50 minutes long? I didn't even care how long it was. I was locked in, and it was only when it was done, like, okay, that was a great 40, 50 minutes. And I don't watch a lot of video content. I'm going to be very honest with you. I watch some. I don't want to make it like, but this is something that I'm probably going to be, a regular consumer of it. And I think a lot of people are, just the way it was put together. I guess, my question to you is how do you find these folks, or how do they find you to set these episodes up? In other words,
it's tough because not only do you have to find a collection that you think is good enough for TV, you have to find a person that you feel like is good enough for TV and will be okay with being on TV, being recorded.
Yeah.
And then it has to be in a location that you can get to. So there's a lot that's been going into like us figuring this out. And I'll just say this, like we have 3 episodes that are done. They're all coming out this month. When this comes out, this will be right before episode 3 comes out on Monday. Each episode is a little bit different because our idea was this whole mindset of chasing cardboard. It fleshes itself out in so many ways. It might be going to somebody's attic. It might be going to a card show. It might be going to an antique shop. There's all kinds of ways, like us as collectors try to hunt down sports cards. And so we try to like show every element. And I think the viewers will probably tell us which one they like the most. I think I know which one they're going to like the most, but it is hard. To your point, it is really hard finding collections, and there's no shortage of people selling cards, but most of them are cards you don't want to buy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so here in Syracuse, I'm Google certified. So if you type in Syracuse sports cards, I'm going to be the first person that comes up. So I don't want to say every day, but I average about, a call a day with, hey, are you buying? And you, one thing I love what you did on the first episode, and there's no shame in doing. I think you're very transparent, honest. You're like, hey, send me pictures of some of the better stuff or what you think's your better stuff. Because I'm traveling, like I don't want to make a trip, and with all due respect, you bring out like 3 tubs of 91 Fleer baseball. You know what I mean? That's, and a lot of times you mention that, like I get those calls. Hey, send me some pictures of what you think's the better stuff of your inventory, and it's that 90s era stuff that I just I don't have a market for. And I didn't used to do that, Ty. So I travel, not the same travel you're doing, maybe 10 miles, and then you get there into someone's garage, and like now not only are you a bearer of bad news, but you're in the garage delivering the bad news rather than on the end of a text or a phone call, and it's
sure.
It's a different situation. So I learned, like, hey, scope, do a little scoping out before you just make a trip. And you make a great point. Probably, if I get 10 calls, probably 7 or 8 of them are that kind of stuff, with all due respect, where I'm not going to go over there and I tell them, listen, there might be some hidden gems in there, but from what I can tell, it's a massively overproduced era of cards. And I have plenty myself I'd like to not have. And, I try to be, break it in a way without being too harsh, but also letting them know, letting them down as easy as you can. So when you did that, it's funny. I was nodding my head at that scene when you were talking about, hey, I'm looking at some pictures here, because it's important. And it's I think someone else might not even have talked about that, let's say, but the fact that you're transparent, and it's a huge thing when you're traveling. And I'm talking about 10 miles. You're traveling, in this case, the state of Texas.
Yeah. Well, we had, and this will come out after episode 2. Episode 2, we actually have a situation where I end up convincing the guy, and he's an incredible guy. We sit in his house. We sit with his wife. I get so excited, I convince him to keep the cards and give them to his grandkids. And there's some monster cards. And like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, I want to buy this so bad. And obviously I want to pay him a fair price for it, but he just realized, like, it's just better to stay in the family. Not many people have Jim Brown rookies and all these mantles and stuff. And it's true. Right. And like, that to me was almost as exciting as buying a collection, because you just realized the guy figured out, oh my goodness, I got some cool stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward. Is there like a limit? Like, where will you go? Like, is there a place? Is there, obviously, if you can't get, like you said, some places are a little bit more difficult to navigate. Is there like a radius that you want? Like, you know what I mean? Where do someone calls you, from the top of Maine, or you know what I mean? Or can you get there? Will you get there? Like, where do you have where's the limit, or is there none?
I wouldn't say there's no limit, but yeah, we're pretty flexible. We already have some stuff booked out in DC, in Florida, in Nevada. We're going to Colorado in a couple weeks. So we're going to see plenty of places. Maine would be really tough, though. I'll be honest, Maine would be tough.
But yeah, you want to do that in spring and summer too, if you're gonna do that, So, man, sure. It's well done. I mean, I how do you do that? I mean, you work a full time. You work a full time 9 to 5. How do you do? Like, I'm watching again. I've watched the first episode at the time we're recording this, and I'm like, how is he doing that and work? Like, how do you pull that off? Like,
I take time off for those. For one, we do it over weekends. I can't Matt Coleman is really good. Like, he gives the impression that we have 7 or 8 guys in a crew, because and we have cameras everywhere in the cars, and we're doing audio strapped everywhere, but he's just so stinking talented that he pulls it off. But as we grow a little bit, we've already figured out we're going to need at least a couple more people going with us. So it's just too hard.
All right, we're going to step aside for one more quick break. But when we come back, we're going to ask Ty about going full-time in the hobby.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
We are back. Let's conclude our conversation with Ty Wilson of Bench Clear Media. I mean, eventually, like, do you want to do this where maybe this is what you do? Rather, I don't want to, I'm not trying to get you to quit your job here on the air. We won't say, I don't know if they listen to you. Well, this is, I don't know if they probably don't listen to this show, but is this something maybe eventually you sort of, this is what you want to do full time? I mean, not just chasing cardboard, but that as encompassing everything else too.
Yeah, it's crossed my mind many times, and I put out videos of what it would take to do that, right? From the selling sports cards. I think you just know when the right time is. And I don't think now's the right time, but it's always a possibility. Day at a time, right? The Lord will open up the right door, and I'll know it, and that'll be that. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and then on episode 1, you did buy a collection. You were loading it up. Like, I bought a collection 5-6 months ago, probably a lot smaller than that one, and it took me 1 or 2 weeks to really go through it, price it, put stuff, sort it all out, categorize it. How do you? Not only are you doing the show, then if you buy things, then you got to go through. Like, again, I keep going back to, like, I'm amazed, like, how you getting all this stuff done. Like, I mean, I got to think, like, you get the Keebler elves in your garage, and you're like, all right, guys, here's 7 tubs. When I wake up tomorrow, I want it all sorted by year, by player. Obviously I joke, but I mean, it goes to, like, how are you getting it? Like, just know, because I've done similar stuff on a smaller scale.
Yeah,
I get it. Like, how do you get all this stuff done? I'm amazed.
Yeah, you have to put in processes. You have to block your time. You have to, like, there's a book, Deep Work, that was written, and it's all about, like, blocking off time and how much more productive you are when you block off sections of your day and do things. That's just the way I work, right? Block off 45 minutes to do this, and that's all I do, and I get a lot done, and I go to the next thing. And I have a great wife who does a lot of stuff, and even my older boys, right? They help with a lot of things that they want to help with. So it just works.
Yeah, that's awesome. I got to ask you one last question. How much, on average, I mean, every day is different, I get it. On average, how many hours of sleep do you get per day?
I would say 7. I try to shoot for 7.
All right.
What about you?
I get less than you do. I got to be up 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm some days I'm up to 12:30, even 1 o'clock. I noticed, Ty, I don't know why, the older I get, like, I can get away, or at least for now, it might catch up to a few years from now, but I can get away with, seems like, a little bit less sleep than you would think. But I don't know if I'm lucky or just the way it is. But 5 or 6 if I'm really on the ball and I can get that 7. I sleep in. I will admit this, on the weekends I do try to sleep in as late as I can. Some days, some weekends it works better than others, but I love weekend naps. I've even put that on my Twitter. Like, hey, I just woke up from a Saturday nap, man. The best, I love them. And so I try to always sneak in a weekend nap when possible. Doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's that helps too.
Once I start taking naps, then I know it's time to give up some stuff because I'm doing too much. That's the.
I hear. Well, like I said, what a busiest man in the hobby. Thanks for coming on Sports Card Nation, man, especially being as busy as you are, making some time for us. Give out where people can find Bench Clear Media, Breaker Culture, all the new show. Take your time, all that good stuff.
I'll just focus on the 2, right? Follow us on Bench Clear Media for sure. Type in Bench Clear Media on YouTube. You'll find us there. We have a podcast through that network. Lots of great content for Mike Moynihan and Tyson Banker and Matt Coleman and myself. But go to Chasing Cardboard, subscribe. We would love your support. We want to show the TV networks that the hobby can and is big enough to be on TV. That's kind of the goal here. I think when we look back 3 months from now, 6 months from now, is to go show the History Channel that the hobby's ready.
Yeah, well, what I saw with episode 1, I think it's a great example of what can get out there and what we can consume, and it was well done. And hey, continued success, and we'll talk soon.
John, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. All right. Want to thank Ty Wilson for joining the show today. We're going to take another quick break, give out some information. After that, we're going to come back with some closing thoughts for this episode.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
We love our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We care about your opinions and feedback and invite you to reach out to us on any of our social media accounts. On Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast, Twitter at SportsCardNati1, or email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. We don't ask for much, but if you really like the show, give us a shout out. Tell your friends or give us a follow on our social medias. If you enjoyed the show, please give us a positive review on iTunes or any of the platforms you are listening on. Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap for 179 of Sports Card Nation. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Ty Wilson taking some time out of that busy schedule. That guy's one of the hardest working people in the hobby, but made some time for us, so we appreciate it. We're going to keep this intro short and sweet. Check out our website, www.sportscardnationpodcast.com. I've started to do a weekly blog again. This week's was pertaining to, hobby travel and how it's become more difficult, and so it delves into that. But have some older blogs on there. But I'm going to try to do a blog a week. I used to write for Tough Stuff magazine, a few issues back in the day, and a few local publications as well. Back in the day, and I have a face for writing. There's a face for radio. I not only have a face for radio, but I have a face for writing too. So I'm gonna dabble back in that. Try to come up with a piece a week. Some will be longer, some will be shorter. Try to keep it interesting. So head over to www.sportscardnationpodcast.com. Check those blogs out. Check our sponsor page. A lot of promo codes and discounts on there, and you can catch any episode you may have missed on the podcast or on the webpage as well. So with that being said, we'll see you soon.
That's a wrap on another edition of the Sports Card Nation podcast. Thank you to all the awesome listeners out there. Without you, there is no us. Thank you to all our great guests who drive this show, and also our wonderful sponsors who help us produce the great hobby content every week. Remember, another Hobby Quick Hits episode drops every Monday, and Sports Card Nation returns again next Friday. If you like the shows, we appreciate those positive reviews. Be well, and always remember, the hobby is the people.